We met at Mar-a-Lago a couple weeks ago.
I remember.
Yeah, you complimented my face. I really do appreciate it.
Your beauty.
Thanks for sitting down. I really do appreciate
Okay.
it. So I know you don't have a lot of time, so I'll just we'll jump right in.
Okay, good.
We had a couple polls we went over on the show, on our show, IRL. Young people, surprisingly, immigration is a top issue for them now. I was talking to a young guy, he's 26. He says he's watching what's going on in New York. He owns a business. He can't afford to buy his own house. He struggles to be able to support a family. And I know that you've said that there's going to be the largest deportation effort in your next term. How do we do it?
So millions and millions of people are coming into our country, and it's not necessarily exactly what we want or had in mind. They have open borders where people just flow in. And many of those people are coming from prisons. Many of those people, frankly, are murderers and they're drug dealers, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from places that are not going to work very well. It's not going to be very good for our country. So we're going to start with that, and we have to get them out. No country can sustain what we're going through. I believe the number is 15, 16 million, could even be 17 million people right now. That's more than that's bigger than almost all of our states.
I think it's freaking out young people. How do we do it, though? I mean, is it going to be new personnel?
It will really be done with local police. You know, the respect has been taken away. The honor has been taken away from our police forces. They're not allowed to do anything. And whether it's libertarian or not libertarian, you have to have law and order. You can't have 500 people walking into a department store and just walking out with everything they have. And we have to give honor and respect back, and I believe immunity, because, you know, so often when a police person does their job, they end up with no pension, they end up with no house, they end up with no family. Everything's taken away from them. They have to get their own lawyer. So we're going to give them back their dignity and their strength. The local police know the criminals that we're talking about. They know their first name, their middle name, and their last name. They know everything about them. And we're going to have to let them do that. And they will bring them in. We have no choice. And these are, in many cases, and this is from all over the world, not just South America, which is big enough, but they're coming in from the Congo. They're coming in from all parts of Africa. They're coming in from all parts of Asia. And it's an invasion into our country. And no country can handle this. So we're going to have them taken out. Local police, we're going to work very closely with the local police. And it's been done before. We had Dwight Eisenhower, believe it or not, did the biggest deportation. He pretty much stopped it. Strange that we mentioned Eisenhower because you don't think of him that way, but he did a massive deportation where people were pouring in.
The next big question that we get a lot is, there's two components to this. The first is many of the libertarians here, we want to see firings. We want to see in the bureaucracy corrupt
I agree.
individuals, the bloat. On top of that, without getting into the specifics for obvious reasons, the things that they're doing to you with the court system is not just to you. It is to me. It is to everyone who voted for you in 2020.
It's true.
Are we going to get some good personnel in as Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and in the CIA, and see some prosecutions?
So we had some great people because our trade numbers were fantastic. The jobs we did on trade, the jobs we did, frankly, in the military underneath the terrible television generals who were absolutely terrible, but we have incredible people. You know, we defeated ISIS, and we had no new wars because they were concerned with us. I had no wars at all. I finished off a war that we were in for 20 years, but we had no wars. And we have to get the right people. It's all about the people. So when I first came here, I was only in Washington 17 times in my life. All of a sudden, I'm president. And I really knew nobody. I relied on people. Some were good, some were rhinos, some gave us some bad advice. And generally speaking, we had very good people. But we had some that we have to do better. Attorney General, we have to get a great Attorney General. And I'd work with the Libertarian Party on that. I think it's very good because, you know, I view the Libertarian Party as almost a party of common sense, largely of common sense. And I say that about the Republican Party, too. We're a party of common sense. You want borders, but you want fairness. You want a lot of things that a lot of other people don't talk about. So we will work with a lot of people to get the right people in. The difference is I now know sort of everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not having to be relying on people that I didn't know very well and listen to their recommendations. And I think we're going to have phenomenal people. I know the people. I know the good ones, the bad ones, the weak ones, the strong ones. I think we're going to have great people.
We're friends with Kash Patel. He was on the show just before you, and that gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah. Well, Kash is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's an example of a good one.
Yep.
We have some great people, but Kash was a great example. Devin Nunes, as you know, he's fantastic.
Absolutely.
We have so many great people.
So when it came to foreign policy, I'll be honest, I didn't vote for you in 2016. I was jaded. Obama let me down. I'm from Chicago. I thought 2016 was silly. And then in 2020, with the timeline for getting out of Afghanistan,
Right.
when you tried to get our troops out of Syria, my question is, why are we in Syria? Who even knew?
Yeah.
And they lied to you, and they lied to us about the number of troops in there. And so maybe it's a bit blunt for me to say I want to see people prosecuted for the lies of the American people. But in terms of foreign policy, perhaps it's a little bit of a biased interview, but I think you're the greatest president of my lifetime.
I appreciate it.
And ending the wars that we should not have been involved in. Now the fear is World War III.
Yeah.
What are you looking at when you enter your next term to stopping the escalation?
Well, first of all, I'm the only one that is going to stop World War III, because this man can't put two sentences together. He doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know where he is. And amazingly, it seems like he's going to be running. You know, it's a lot of people say, do you think he'll make it to the starting gate? Well, we'll see what happens. But if you look at Viktor Orban, because we don't want to see wars. I don't want to see wars. I was in no wars other than we finished a war with ISIS, and we completed it, 100% complete. But I don't want to see wars. I think it's so horrible, so unnecessary, so costly in terms of lives and money in that order, and destroying these countries. You know, you're destroying culture. When you look at Ukraine, that would have never happened if I were president. You look at the October 7th attack on Israel, it would have never happened.
I look at your policies, I see secure the borders, bring jobs back. I look at the Democrats and many Republicans, and it's foreign war and foreign expansion.
That's right.
What is that?
I think it's just a failed mentality. It's crazy. You can solve problems over a telephone. Instead, they start dropping bombs. I see recently they're dropping bombs all over Yemen. You don't have to do that. You can talk in such a way where they respect you and they listen to you. Viktor Orban of Hungary, you know, the leader, they call him a strong man. Who cares if he's a strong man or not a strong man? He's a very powerful guy. He said the problem the world has is that Donald Trump is no longer president. When he was president, China didn't play around, Russia didn't play around, nobody played around, and we had no problems. Today, the whole world is on fire.
I heard that funny, there's a conversation from a phone call where you said that there was, they maybe thought there was a 5% chance you'd nuke them.
That's well,
and so it kept them in line. It's kind of scary to think about, but you take a look at the weakness we have now with Ukraine and the money that we are wasting. You know, I'll bring it back to the economy. This young guy I was talking to about immigration. Actually, I'll put it this way: there's a viral video where a young man's screaming that we're sending hundreds of billions to a country no one's ever heard of,
right.
and young people are hurting in this country. Do you see any direct economic policy that is on your list for 2025?
Direct economic, but also direct in terms of warfare. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars all around the world. But when you look at Ukraine, we're giving all of this money. Europe, which is much more affected by that war than us, is spending just a tiny fraction of what we're spending. And you say, does anybody at least get involved in this? But more importantly, I will end that war. I'll get it ended. Putin respects me. Zelensky respects me. I know all the players. And I want to get that war ended. It's a horrible war. It's a terrible, there's no good war, but that's a horrible war. And to think it would have never started. It would have never started. If the election turned out like it should have turned out, that war would have never started. I mean, and you know, the number of lives we're talking about is far greater than the numbers that you hear. When they blow up a town, or when they blow up these buildings, these massive buildings, surprisingly, I mean, these are big. That was my business. These are big, powerful buildings. And they come tumbling down to the ground and they say nobody was injured. A lot of people were killed. Yeah. And the numbers are a lot different than you think. You will see that happening. When those numbers really get announced, you're going to see it's much worse than people think.
Here at the Libertarian Party National Convention, they had one of their, I believe one of their presidential nominees said he wants to see Fauci, the heads of Moderna, Pfizer, Biden, and you locked up for what happened during COVID. I don't agree with them, but there is a big sentiment. Elon Musk tweeted, prosecute Fauci. Fauci lied to Congress about the gain-of-function research that was going on, and now we have testimony.
Well, I'm the one that stopped the funding, and this was funding from before me. I'm the one that stopped the funding. Fauci wasn't a big player in my administration like he was after I left. I mean, Biden made him the king of everything. And if you take a look at that, Fauci was not the big player with me that he was. And in fact, I did things that he didn't want to do. He wanted to keep it open to China. I said, you got to close it to China because it was all coming out of China. It was coming out of Wuhan, which I said right at the beginning. But the other thing is, and what people don't realize, I believe in federalism. I gave the power to governors. Some governors did a great job. In all cases, they were Republicans. And some, like in South Carolina, Henry McMaster, kept everything open. Others didn't. The Democrats did a bad job, very bad job. But basically, I gave that power over the states. I gave it to the governor. I gave it back to the states. And I think it's something which, when people realize that, it's something that they respect.
Will there be accountability for the lying to Congress when you get to appoint your new AG, deputy AG?
Yeah, and we'll take a look at statute of limitations because, the statute of limitations are quite long. And we're going to be looking at that very seriously, yeah.
I got one big question for you. So part of my family comes from Korea.
Good.
And you did what I think is one of the most tremendous things. You crossed the demilitarized zone into North Korea with no security as a sign of goodwill and peace with the hostile nation. And I've had people tell me it never happened. So I think people need to know about it. And I'm wondering if you can just tell me how did that happen? How did it come to be?
And it hasn't happened since.
Yeah.
And when I met with, with the handoff, you sort of meet with the previous president for a period of time. The meeting lasted for quite a while. With President Obama, you sit in the Oval Office and you talk, and the press is outside, and you talk for a little while. He said the single greatest threat we have is North Korea. And I said, have you called them? Have you tried to talk to them? Little things like that. And didn't matter what the answer was. He felt that was the single biggest threat in the world was North Korea. And as you know, there was certain hostility when I first started, and all of a sudden it boiled down to something that was very beautiful, the way it happened. And I got along with him very well. And I will say that if Hillary won that race, you would have had a nuclear war and millions of people would have been killed. And you weren't even close to that. It never happened. It was never going to happen. I got along great with him, and it just never was going to happen.
Were you at all scared in any way when you crossed into an enemy country?
Well, I wouldn't say that Secret Service was thrilled. And in those blue buildings, there were lots of people in those buildings that I looked at. The two blue buildings on each side with the windows. And I looked in those windows, and there were a lot of things happening in those. Someday I'll tell you about it. But no, I felt very safe. I felt my relationship with him, as you know, was very hostile. Little Rocket Man and all that. But then all of a sudden it morphed. He respected me. I respected him. And we ended up, once we got to know each other, we ended up very good. A very smart guy, very strong guy. He's the absolute leader of that country. For those that think he's not, they're wrong. And I got to know him very well. I even did a press conference. He never did a press conference before. I said, would you like to do a press conference? And we did a press conference, if you remember. And then he said, that's the end of the press conference. And boom, everybody was pretty radically thrown out. But it was a press conference, the only press conference he's ever done. I got along with him great. We had no nuclear war. You would have had a nuclear war guaranteed. And you won't if we have the right president, if we have somebody that knows what he's doing, you're not going to have World War III. If, on the other hand, we don't, you're going to end up in World War III, and it's going to be a war like no other because of the power of weaponry.
Many have actually been saying we're already in it. The Hill published a piece saying we are in World War III and Biden is losing it. And so my hope is I don't see any logical path for a Biden presidency to fix the economy, to fix anything.
He can't fix himself.
Yeah.
Can't fix anything.
He had a new one the other day, Pakalaka. I don't know if you saw that. He was muttering on TV, something like that. Now, crypto.
By the way, I just so you know, I know all the leaders. They're at the top of their game. They're sharp. They're tough. They're smart. They love their country, or they do whatever they have to for their country at a minimum. And when they see this guy come in, I think they can't believe it. I know they can't believe it. It's not the right person.
So we'll do a couple quick ones. We don't have much time. You announced you're taking cryptocurrency.
What we're doing is we're backing it as a form of, as a field, and we have to, because otherwise somebody else is going to be doing it from another country. And as you know, they're already trying, and it's going to happen, and we're going to help it happen. and it's something that can be very good. I think it can be very good.
No central bank digital currencies.
No digital, right, no central bank.
And one more big one. Will you pardon Julian Assange?
Well, I'm going to talk about that today, and we're going to give it very serious consideration. And we're going to have a couple of other things to say in the speech that I think you're going to love.
I've heard some rumors.
And you've gotten so much out of me, I should leave a little bit for the speech, don't you think?
Mr. President, it is an honor and a privilege. I really do appreciate you sitting
and
down
you're
with
very
me.
respected, I have to say. When I did a little research,
Yeah.
and some of my guys said, and I met you before, but they said just a very respected guy. It's my honor. Even though we're keeping that big crowd, that's the biggest crowd they've ever had. We're keeping them waiting just for this interview, so congratulations.
Thank you so much. Shall we?
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
I really do appreciate it.
Great. Thanks. That was fun.
You've got my vote.
We better win. We're not going to have a country.
Yeah. We're excited. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do. We're friends with Junior and Cash. And,
Yeah.
So we're